Welcome to Creative Compulsions. We're taking a break from the LA grind to unravel the future cinema classics of tomorrow while honoring the masterpieces of yesterday.
It's so much more than a podcast. It's an unabashed deep dive into the world of entertainment, current events, culture, and the randomness of our day-to-day existence through the lens of young Hollywood. No topic or genre is off the table.
So, grab your popcorn, your Halle Berry, or whatever fizzes your soda.
Let's get into it.
This is Creative Compulsions.
I love that part.
All right. I am, of course, your host, Martinez. I'm an actor.
And I am part goof, part truth, actor, writer, and self-improvement connoisseur, Troy Hatt.
Now, in this first of this double-header episode, as part of our new release series, we envelop ourselves into the year 1971. Miramax and Focus Features brings us The Holdovers, headlined by critically acclaimed actor Paul Giamatti, directed by widely respected filmmaker Alexander Payne, who you may know from Election, The Descendants, and Sideways, and written by David Hemmingson. This film is already generating Oscar buzz with a scene-stealing performance by Divine Joy Randolph, who you might know from Only Murders in the Building, among other things, and an extremely confident performance by newcomer Dominic Sessa.
And as mentioned earlier, we're going to round out our discussions with what many call the definitive prep school movie, Robin Williams starring vehicle, 1989's Dead Poets Society, featuring a young Ethan Hawke, directed by powerhouse Peter Weir. But before we get to that, it's time for the catch-up.
The catch-up.
It's randomly extremely hot today. And I made the mistake twice of overdressing.
Which is so odd. We're almost into December.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how warm it is. But the strike is over. Oh my gosh. Thankfully. We mentioned that briefly in the other episode. They were in negotiations. And turns out the strike is over. It was like the SAG strike was since July. Mm-hmm. But the writers were on strike in March.
Yeah.
From March or April.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So technically.
A while.
Everything was just done from April.
Yeah.
So that's been really exciting. I'm kind of curious how things are going to look. And
I have a question for you.
So grateful.
What was the strike like for you? Because I had a very particular experience, because a lot of the times, it somehow just kept getting compared to 2020. I'm luckily, none of us were sick, but it was the same type of mentality of how do we keep ourselves busy? How do we maneuver this time period? Also, similar to 2020, we didn't know when it was going to end. It was is it next week? And it just kept going and going and going.
I know.
Going. So what was that experience like for you?
It's so unfortunate, especially coming back out of 2020. I mean, people in the industry are still talking about the ripple effects of what that did to the world, really, and our industry. And then having this strike also come into play so close to that, it was, for me, very difficult. I mean, I was going back-to-back shooting over the past couple of years, and I wrapped up my last project in March, and since then, I was just like, what the heck is going on? What do we do right now?
Start a podcast, maybe?
Exactly. Starting the podcast.
It might have happened without it happening, and I'm kind of glad that it happened for this.
Trying to get things kind of moving in a sense. I picked up writing. I picked up a bunch of different hobbies, but really it was just kind of holding my breath.
Yeah.
Which is a thing where, at some point you have to just kind of get on with your life, and you have to really think about how long is this going to fare, and how am I going to stay afloat so that I can weather this storm.
This is the truth, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, because a lot of our listeners probably went through it. I had the worst time, and the thing is what makes it unique is I truly feel confidently in saying that I sailed through 2020 minus the sickness, and I know that I'm grateful that I feel like I may have caught COVID just before COVID actually hit, before it was popular, before I knew what I was going. It was during my birthday week, I got really, really sick. But my mentality, as I said in the previous episode, I had started this mindfulness journey. I had started a writing schedule. I had started a reading schedule, taking baths to keep myself calm and all that stuff. And it's for some reason went all out the window with this SAG strike. And I have the spiritual side and the human side. The spiritual side is of course this was meant to happen. It's flushing people out of Los Angeles. It's giving people permission to do what they need to do. And for me, normally I would have hunkered down and wrote. And I spent a lot of time going, life's too short, which is hilarious, and it's time for everyone to take a shot because I'm about to say I just got chills, which I say every episode.
A lot, which is great though. That's your thing.
It's the truth. It's one of my compasses for how I'm feeling.
If you were a cartoon, that would be your character. Whoa, I just got chills.
Well, I just got chills. Which is hilarious because Dead Poet Society, which we're going to cover, is all about carpe diem and seizing the day. And I truly felt like I just decided that I was going to enjoy the summer regardless of what was going on. And, there's a privilege to that also. I was juggling like mad, but I was like, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to see certain friends and reconnect with certain friends. And that's literally what brought all of this together. So,
well, there you go. I guess there was a little bit of beauty out of this.
There is a little bit of beauty.
You have to make it. You have to make it what it is.
I have to say, I went to bat for this film. The first time I watched it, there was an older couple that came in and were talking really loudly, and me and Jerome and one of my other friends, Adam, just eventually started laughing during certain periods because they were so loud. So it was hard for me to fully go to bat for this film. Like, we need to cover it. And the second time I watched it, I was like, we have to. But I don't know what you thought of this film. Like, I actually have no clue.
So you watched it twice. Okay.
I did.
Nice. Just a reminder, we're finding out what each of us think about the film for the very first time.
It's funny, this word
It's like the raw, unfiltered review.
And there's danger to it. There's excitement that is there, and I try so hard to go. I'm like, la, don't tell me.
I know.
And because I literally have no clue, and it tells us about each other. Like, I'm finding out about you by finding out what you feel about this film.
And it's great too. It's cool because I have my own separate doc. You know what I mean? That I had to put we have like a little bit of a format. But if you saw that, then you would know what I was gonna say, and who knows what that premeditative kind of episode would look like. Okay, so the Holdovers. The log line is a cranky history teacher at a remote prep school is forced to remain on campus over the holidays with a troubled student who has no place to go. And then later on in this episode, we are also going to be talking about Dead Poet Society. And the log line for that is a maverick teacher, John Keating, returns in 1959 to the prestigious New England boys' boarding school where he was once a star student, using poetry to embolden his pupils to new heights of self-expression.
I'm dying to hear. Martin, what'd you think?
Okay, first of all, on the record, I'm going to say it. Troy, you were right.
Oh, this is why. Yes.
This is why I'm
hot. I'm hot because you're not.
All right. Anyways, Troy, you were right, and I'm so glad you kept pushing for the Holdovers for this episode because what a film.
Oh, I'm gonna just full on cry because it was gonna tell us something about our connection because we both love film and a lot of our films intersect.
Yeah. So this is the scoop. This is my scoop, okay? The Holdovers, which is currently in theaters, sits at 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Paul Giamatti, a huge working actor with just over 250 credits to his name, plays Paul Hunnam, a classics teacher at Barton Academy, which is a Massachusetts boarding school where his character actually went to school years before. But he's now a washed-up writer, which has left him as a bitter, pompous teacher. Now, during the holiday break, one of the students has nowhere to go, which forces Mr. Hunnam to stay at the academy during the break. Directed by Alexander Payne, like we mentioned before, where moody and quarrelsome people are his specialty, according to New York Times.
According to New York Times.
So you automatically know that you're in it for a trip, you know what I mean? This film is a complete 70s throwback, and like Mr. Hunnam says, history isn't the study of the past, but an explanation of the future. The film delivers a very clever and well-executed balance of humor and drama and wisdom sprinkled throughout the film. The comedy is timed so perfectly, and watching Paul Giamatti in this role is amazing to see because he is subtle and he is sharp, and the comedic moments left me and the whole theater laughing out loud, which was amazing to see how the theater was like basically full. People started to file in the crowd, and the crowd varied greatly, with older couples, groups of young friends, to younger couples enjoying the film for what looked like date night, which was awesome to see. So go to the theater. It's still a blast. It's still a thing to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And as well as a slew of other solo watchers like myself. But Paul Giamatti is so subtle, and he owns the film in every frame he is in, really landing the comedy and the wisdom. One of my favorite lines were from the scene with Paul and Carrie Preston. So she looks over to Angus Tilley's character and says, life catches up to them so fast. And then she lets out a chuckle of both partial embarrassment and realization. And then she proceeds to look at Mr. Hunnam and says, them, laughing. And then she says, us. Life catches up to us so fast. And that hit me so hard. Divine Joy Randolph gave her character a light Boston accent. Did you notice that?
Yes.
And her character was dealing with the loss of her son. Such a grounded performance from her. And I gotta say, Dominic Sessa, where and how did they find this guy?
Where did this kid come from? I'm looking through IMDb doing research for this film. And
this is his first and only credit.
Congratulations.
Very big congratulations. It would have been super awesome to see if he got an introducing credit. Did he get that? Did it say
Not that I saw.
That would have been really cool. But what a great performance from him. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next.
Divine Joy Randolph, it's so easy to be boring. It is so easy for an actor to choose a performance where I'm just gonna look like I'm doing nothing. I'm just gonna deliver that is so dangerous for an actor because it can fall into boring. And she is captivating. She is real. She trusted that her work was there. She trusted that her emotions were gonna rise to the surface at the right moments. And she delivers this masterful performance where you just believe this character. And I actually want to get into this specifically. I'm Black. My mom is Black. I talk about the Black experience while also acknowledging that I don't have the full Black experience because of the color of my skin. Percentages to be determined. So I talk about the Black experience. And this is an incredible role for a Black actress in the 70s, 1971 specifically, where she's so full of life, and they've given her this very beautiful pocket for a character that is a cook in a preparatory school to voice her opinions, to swear, to cut into these other characters, which is not usually seen. And it is an important performance because we have the ability to write for these characters, and it takes some effort to figure out how you can find the color and also acknowledge the fact that there was a lack of equality at that time. And I just thought that was beautiful. And Paul Giamatti, I know him from...
The performances in this film were very grounded. They were very subtle and very grounded, a lot like what you were saying with Divine's choices. And you said boring, and a term for the industry can also come out as flat.
Thank you.
Right. But you're right. She trusted that her preparation, her work was there. Everything was happening behind the eyes, internally, and that would surface at the right times. And you could tell it was a choice.
Yeah.
You could tell that it was like, I'm not here to try to steal scenes. I'm here to be as authentic as possible.
Yeah, maneuver around me, and that is her character. Maneuver around me because I'ma just be me, and I love that.
Everybody was really in a really giving place. Especially if we're talking about like maybe set culture wise, it was no competition for scenes. Everybody was there like supporting each other, working as a team, working as a well-oiled engine. And I think that's what makes this film like read and be so enjoyable to watch, because everybody is just is in there holding their own space, holding space for the actor authentically, rooted and grounded in authenticity.
And we say the word supporting cast a lot. Doesn't mean that that's what they're doing. Sometimes that's just the position they're given. I truly felt that every single character in this film was part of that supporting cast on building this story. I grew up with Paul Giamatti in A Man on the Moon or Man in the Moon. I always forget which one it is because both of those are movies, but it's the movie with Jim Carrey. And I've always loved him, and he's just absolutely incredible. I find him always authentic, and this role is a little bit zany, and his ability to ground it is just exceptional. And I actually found myself enjoying his performance specifically the second time around. Really, I was like,
he was so good. Him in this part, he was really good, and he was so subtle. Like I said, the comedic moments really hit, the drama really hit, everything kind of just really worked. I will say, like, people that are going into the theater that are going to watch it, just get past the first act. First act is where they're building the world.
The setup.
It's the setup. You're building. You're understanding what's happening, but you're not really invested until I feel like the other kids leave.
Fair. And isn't that the entire film? That's what it's about. It's about the kids who do leave. Specifically, can I talk about?
Because it brings an intimacy to the characters, and then you, as a viewer, as a watcher, now you're starting to identify with them because you're starting to see so many other levels and facets to these characters, and that's what happens in the first act. You know, you're not going to be. They have to take time to develop the characters. You know. I'm only saying that for like maybe a younger audience that wants to go and check it out.
Sure.
Or expecting something that's going to be like maybe, you know, like it's tough now because our attention span is a lot more difficult to hold over. Hey,
Creative Compulsions.
You know, because like we had talked about this in the previous episodes, but we have like social media, we have all these electronics and stuff like that, but also other projects that are out are already established IP. You know, you're seeing like a lot of superhero films and things like that, action-packed scenes, explosions, and you're usually getting that right off the bat. This is like kind of a slow burn in the beginning, but when you're locked in and you're there and you're invested and you're experiencing it, and it's storytelling at its finest. It's the human condition. That's it. You're not getting any of the flashing stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm here. I'm on the ride with you. I'm still reeling from the fact that I just found out that you love it as much as I love it. I'm still reeling.
It was so good.
I operate on melancholy, and I feel like this film like completely connects to a certain like level that my body naturally operates on. And from the very beginning, this quiet music, first it fully commits to being a 1971 film. So from the final crack of like, you can hear almost like a record player crack, and almost like the film being spliced as the film begins and this music starts, and it reminds me of like Into the Wild with the gorgeous music that kind of goes throughout the music in this film. It is a holiday film because they intersect it with all of this beautiful music that just, it's a character in the film. The camera is a character in the film. They commit. I
was wondering if they filmed it on film. It looks like it, doesn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised, actually. I should probably know that.
It looks like it. It's a complete 70s film in 2023. Entirely. You know, I was reading some reviews and people were like, oh yeah, after I was watching the film, I totally forgot I was in 2023. I expected to walk out of the theater and be in the 70s. That's cool.
That's great. And to go off what you said, the first time I went, not very many people. And mind you, this was 2 weeks ago. When I recently went, there were more people in the theater. Mm-hmm. And there was a younger generation in the theater enjoying the movie and laughing. And I felt like part of a community. And it was just amazing.
Also listening to some other like podcasts talked about the Holdovers. And it's unfortunate that it probably didn't get as much exposure as it could have because the cast wasn't able to promote the film.
Right.
You know, they're not able to go
a casualty
Q&A, and a film like this needs that. You know what I mean? Talking about the character, having the screenings, people invested. So after they watch it, like, oh my god, let's talk to these like people and these actors and these artists to see how they were able to deliver this type of material. So that's unfortunate. But given the high like Rotten Tomato score, the audience score, it's high ratings all around, and it's cool because you just said, you went to the theater twice. The second time there was more people watching it. It's a word of mouth kind of film.
Momentum. And I feel like honored to be a part of the promotional machine now that the strike is over, to be able to tell people like, go see this film. Yeah, it's probably going to go out of theaters soon. When it comes back on streaming, watch this film. And if it ever...
Go to the theater. If you can, go to the theater.
Yeah, I'm saying like, you know, it's going to be out of the theater soon. Yeah. And if it's not playing, you know, make sure that you watch it on a big screen TV and blast the sound and just get enveloped in the world.
100%. A lot of reviews were saying, and we even agree, you even brought it up, it kind of models the thematics of Dead Poets Society.
It does. And honestly, watching it a second time, you see the homage. We love that word on this podcast.
Homage to it, yeah. And closely, like the setting is similar, a private school setting, right? You have the teacher that is going to make hopefully a long-lasting impact on somebody that's maybe lacking something or that zest in life. And it's a coming of age. You know, both of our coming of age stories. What I want to say is that like the thematics are the same, but the conclusions are very different. You know, it has its own take to it. Holdovers has its own take. Dead Poet Society has its own take. Both are very fulfilling to watch, and both execute their message very distinctly. And both have similarities, but they are both very different films.
I totally agree with you. They modeled after a lot of the similar shots that are used, but this one almost like, because it's 70s inspired, you feel like Martin Scorsese is directing it, because they do these shots where they pull in and pull out, and I'm like, I love this film. It's gorgeous, and I love the story between the teacher and the student, because they both found each other at a very specific time because they had something that they really needed to go through together, and there was this beautiful resolution, and it's ugly and messy and uncomfortable, and then it becomes the most beautiful thing in the world. And I always say this to you, whenever I reconnect with a friend, like we are working on this podcast, I'm always searching for that reason. I'm like, what are we supposed to pull out of each other? And the definition of collaboration for me isn't you do some stuff and I do some stuff. It is about creating something together that you can see has both of our inspiration in it. And I felt like,
yeah,
I see that in this.
And a psychological thing in psychology, everybody's a mirror to yourself, which, it's interesting to wrap your head around once you get to that understanding. But your reality that surrounds you, the people that you are encounter, the traits that maybe you admire from them or dislike or things like that, those are all a reflection of ourselves. And so a film like this kind of also shows that, in that dynamic. And also in Dead Poets Society, there's something to learn from everybody, and in that learning process, really what you are is you're just learning yourself at a more deeper level. And then that is what can grant you the access to give more to others.
I found myself just crying in this movie, just based off of the tone alone. This is just beautiful music. I felt free and kind of relaxed, and then hearing the Christmas music, and I'm super nostalgic, and just hearing and being in the dark and just hearing this beautiful Christmas music and the beautiful shots that just were just creating the environment, and I'm just kind of like releasing, and we can attest both because we have very similar like-minded films that we both love. That type of film, when it affects me like that, is something that I'm like, I need to watch.
And I know it affected everybody. I know, like, there were so many sniffles in that film, so many sniffles throughout. The young couple that was next to me, like, she couldn't stop crying, and I was like, yeah, like, I felt that lump in my throat periodically throughout the film, and you're right. I know that we are a big fan of this tone of cinema, but I think the story is applicable to everyone. And the difference between... And the reason why we wanted to bring Dead Poet Society up in this is because they are similar. They're like an homage to it. But the difference is, like, the teacher for Mr. Hunnam and Mr. Keatley, right?
Keaton.
Excuse me. Very different. Mr. Hunnam is like he's kind of bitter and pompous, like I said before.
Robin Williams is like pure joy and just...
He's like, life is more than what you think it is.
He's pure inspiration. And Robin Williams is like the only actor that literally broke me when he passed away. And I realized that I had put some of my goals as an actor into this idea that one day I might be near him, I might work with him. And when he passed, it wasn't just him not being around. It was like this whole idea of what I wanted to achieve could no longer be achieved. And I just kind of like put on music and just cried. And it cried for myself, cried for him, cried for everybody.
He was bigger than life itself, Rest in peace, and a big loss to humanity, and I'm so grateful for what he has been able to offer and what stayed. There's a piece, I feel like at least everybody that knows him or knows of his work, have seen his films, there's a part of him inside of our hearts that's always going to be with us.
He's a second father, a movie father.
Yeah, what a legend.
Not just us. And Peter Weir directs Dead Poets Society, and he did The Truman Show. So somehow Peter Weir is able to take these really rambunctious comedians, these larger-than-life characters, and be able to mold them, because it's not suppression. It is almost condensing everything that they have inside that they explode with, and is able to paint with all of that. It's almost like he takes all of this paint, puts it in a little jar, and then puts his little brush in and goes like this, and it's incredible what able to pull out of it. And Robin Williams does Good Will Hunting, and the same thing. It's just like he's able to. It's just amazing to watch what the director is capable of doing, like he did with Jim Carrey.
If you have a chance and you haven't seen it, if you're listening, you should definitely watch Dead Poet Society. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is in the same tone as Holdovers, very similar, and it's a little bit slower of a burn than I think than Holdovers is.
Sure.
So, but you watch it and you feel so resolved. Like Robin Williams' character, he's teaching you to think outside of the box. He's teaching you to find your humanity, find your opinion, find your voice. Or even if you're watching it too, like, it's a coming of age, but also if you've lost your voice, if you're like, you've kind of like forgot where that inner child of you is, you can watch that and be reminded again through the guidance of this character and how Robin portrays this character. And it's interesting watching it now. That's something so far than what AI could produce. You're thinking about emotions, and he's like, so you have to see life. He goes, you have to see life from different perspectives. He stands on the desk. Get up here with me, And then he's like, rip out these pages out of this textbook. He's like, because a business person says this is what poetry should be like. And we see that a lot now.
Academic, yeah.
Shareholders and people that are running like companies that are,
going for the numbers versus the art.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like, that's not what poetry is about, because, they break it down. They like chop it up.
Yeah.
They're talking about poetry like it's math, arithmetic. Yeah.
It's the things that can't be explained.
Exactly. And it's great. And, and the way that he teaches is so inspiring. As you're watching it, there's this one kid that's too cool for school, doesn't want to do these poems. And then he says, okay, all right. And then he like goes to his table and he gives him a little bit lecture one-on-one. And he says, it's fine. It can be short. It can be sweet. Some of the most powerful poems can be short and sweet this way, but don't be ordinary.
And he's like, he can see when somebody's beating themselves up too much, and he uses a different method for that specific student. And so, Ethan Hawke is a revelation in this film, and there's a reason his career has lasted as long as it has, and this was a big part of his beginning. He was a child actor, but even again, it's like he got a new lease on his career with this film. And there's a scene in Dead Poets where, we find out basically that Ethan Hawke his character is having trouble reading. And I swear to God, I feel like I've used this quote on this podcast in the 4 episodes that we've done, but it's like, if you judge a fish on its ability to fly, it'll live its life thinking that it's stupid. And I'm one of those people where I always say my genius lies in other places than a lot of the places other people's are. And if I judge myself based off of how other people are learning, I will always feel inept and I'll always feel dumb. And so that's why this movie's so special to me. He goes, because Ethan Hawke's character has heart and creativity and everything that the other characters have in a very different way. And we find out that really he's a genius in so many ways. It just needs patience, and finding those teachers to be patient is hard.
Going back to the Ethan Hawke's character, definitely was so the main character was really brilliant, and his name is slipping. Do you know his name?
He has 3 names. Robert Sean Leonard, but Neil Perry is his character.
Yeah, so Robert Sean Leonard, who played Neil Perry, brilliant actor, and he's so good. And there's so many articles about it, how this is the type of actor that's been able to fly under the radar, because he's done so much great work, so many great films. And honestly, the performances out of both of them were really like astounding. And it's cool because Ethan Hawke's character is like, he's in a journey of trying to find his voice. And Robin Williams' character, Mr. Keating, he's just like, he can read him like a book. You think everything inside of you is ugly, it twists and it churns, and you just don't know how to grab a hold of it. And I'm like, that's interesting. So this movie is great. It's about finding your voice, finding your perspective, finding your outlook on life. It's speaking your truth, going against the grain.
It's knowing that there's creativity in all of us. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. There's creativity in everything you do. If you're organizing your home, you're using a level of creativity. Creativity is not just for artists, and a lot of people are starting to learn that now. Finding joy also.
So the Holdovers got me walking out of the theater thinking, feeling something on a deeper level that consumed my entire drive back home, which is the point with great films, right? Like, you want to leave feeling something. You want to take part of that film with you. Feel affected and keep that with you for, however long that impression lasts. And that's the point. It got me thinking, like, this is what the holidays are made of. It's what we make of them. Everyone coming together in our lives, in our immediate circles, and serve as a reflection point, like we talked about earlier, where everyone finds themselves not only observing their current place in life, but also at the people around them. The laughter and the joy we have despite the hardships that we have to face on a day-to-day basis. Something as simple as enjoying food together and just holding space is really what makes the holiday season the holiday season. There were several times in the theater where I felt a lump in my throat as my emotions overcame me. As the film ended, there was not a dry eye in the theater. The verdict? The Holdovers, which shares a lot of similarities to The Dead Poets Society, is a cozy film. The latter being a little bit of a slower paced film, but watching both left me thinking and feeling something. One of those films where there aren't any explosions or action-packed sequences, but just people experiencing life and exploring the human condition, the need to be seen and to be loved. These films feel like a hug, and they sound like the silence that comes after a heavy snowfall. So, like Robin Williams says in Dead Poets Society, carpe diem, seize the day and make your life stories extraordinary. And like the last line in Holdovers goes, keep your head up, you can do this.
Yup!
And that's the episode for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys go check out the Holdovers.
This has been another
Creative
Compulsion.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Wow! Creative Compulsions.